disagree with that in its entirety. It is so wrong. And I'll give you a practical example. 3 years ago, when Colin was on 6 years ago, probably 6 years ago, Colin was on council. I was representing our school and the South Wairarapa competition for our school kids. I came to speak to council and said, we need to get a uniform to represent South Wairarapa. Now, I know for a fact that there has never been an agenda item on kids playing sport around this council table. So if we go to there, public could never come and say, council, we need your help. We want you to help. The whole point of public forum is so that they can come and present to council on the issues that they are worried about. And who cares whether it's on the agenda or not, because it's not an agenda item. It's a member of the public coming in and saying, can you help? Can you do this? Can we do that? And this to me is just absolutely should go nowhere. Sorry? End of story.
Thank you.
Through the chair, just a couple of other things to note. Further down within the documentation, it also talks about making sure that members of the public are talking to the right as well. Terms of references for the committees can be quite different. And also members are able to put either through their members report or other ways items on the agenda that can be up for discussion as well. So in the case where a delegate of kids who might want to talk about something relevant to that committee, a member could ask for an item to be placed on that agenda to be discussed if wanted to be.
Yeah, my understanding is that what we've got here is just a clearer form of what we've currently got, and the standing orders at the moment say that if it's an item of the nature that Alistair just posited, then that would be something that goes initially to a committee. But if it's something that's not on the agenda of a full council meeting, then it would not be permitted at the full council meeting. And that's what we adopted X months ago.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't, because that's why it's just here.
Yeah. It's
So that's been amended. So prior to what's been written now, it says public forums are designed to enable members of the public to bring matters of their choice, not necessarily on the meeting's agenda, to the attention of the local authority. But now that's been changed. The public forums are designed to enable members of the public to bring matters on the meeting's agenda to the attention of the local authority.
It's completely against the democratic process. Completely.
No,
You cannot support it in any shape, way, or form.
if you look at the current standing orders, which if we're all looking at this sheet here,
Number 15?
for example,
Paragraph 15.
15,
Yes.
the final paragraph, which hasn't been altered, is the public are
Yes.
permitted to address committees and boards on matters which don't fall within the terms of reference. But at council, the item must be on the agenda. That's our current standing order.
So,
Then it's been contradicting the whole time.
Yeah.
Contradicting the whole thing.
Contradictory.
it's never been picked up.
Well,
So to be clear, it came into my chair's report at the SWC meeting. That's how this workshop came to be. And the purpose of having it in the chair's report at that meeting was to align that SWC committee with the council and not with the standing orders, because they're all the same, but in terms of what rules or what standing order status, I suppose, SWC was falling under. It was to align it with council, because currently, because SWC is a committee, it doesn't have the same status. And so, as the mayor has pointed out, it's like has that flow on effect of things being sent there rather than sitting at the same level as council. And it was, the intention also was to clarify the standing orders, because as you've pointed out, there is a level of inconsistency in terms of, if you read this part, it's very clear that you can bring anything you like. But if you read the next part, as long as it's on the agenda, well, that does, as you say, that doesn't line up. You can't bring anything you like if it's only able to be on the agenda. So it's about clarifying
The last paragraph.
the standing orders, making them easy for us all to understand, easy for chairs to understand, easy for the public to understand, and to ensure that everybody, when they read them, is on the same page, literally, about what it is they're reading.
So does the piece at the bottom that seems to contradict the public are permitted to address committees in the strategy making anything? Got no changes.
No, and that's what I'm saying. The bits currently don't work. The changes currently align to that paragraph. But if that's why we're having a workshop, if that's not what the members want, then this is where we talk about making change.
So the other thing is as well, so the one in red that says the public are permitted to address the Māori Standing Committee and Community Boards, that last one then can just go because it's actually just absolutely just saying pretty much exactly what that one is. So then we're repeating it again, the bit that's not in red. It's actually said twice
It's just,
with only one line in
it's more
between it,
specific.
so.
it's more specific because it
Yeah.
mentions the Maori
So,
Standing
so,
Committee.
so this part can go, you know,
Because where does the strategy working committee?
because what that's doing
What it's doing.
is saying that it's at council, so, but it already says that up here. Council, the item must be on the agenda. So I'm a bit confused because it's actually reading almost identically again. And if we're removing something that's almost identical to, if we're going to get consistency, say it once that, right?
I would actually get rid of the last paragraph that wasn't.
That's what I'm saying, the public
Get rid
are
of it.
permitted to address.
Leave the first paragraph as it was.
It was.
Get rid of the second edited part that you've added in about the Māori Standing Committee and
Okay.
and leave that last part you've added in, the chairman may direct to a different.
I wouldn't get rid of the public are permitted to address the Māori Standing Committee and Community Boards on matters which.
I get rid of it because it doesn't add anything. It's confusing. They're allowed to speak
They're
anyway.
allowed anyway.
If you leave, public forums are designed to enable members of the public to bring matters of their choice, not necessarily other matters of
Yeah.
the attention of the local authority. That says then and there that they can bring anything they like to the Māori Standing Committee or to any other committee. Right? We should be encouraging people to come and speak to us, not actually restricting. Yes.
So you're saying to remove the second one, but keep the last one?
What?
Sorry, I'm a bit confused.
Remove the first formatted part in paragraph 15, right? The red part, remove that. Right?
That's what it was.
Oh, that's public forums are
Yeah,
just
so
enable.
put it back to what it was.
Yep.
Right? Remove the standing committee, Māori standing committee, because they've got that right anyway, right? And leave.
So remove that whole one.
Yeah,
Yep.
leave the chairperson may direct the speaker to a different committee
Yep.
and leave the final paragraph.
No, get rid of the final. Get rid of the.
Sorry, get rid of the final paragraph.
Get rid of the final paragraph.
I feel like it still needs to be said, so people understand like where they can go, you know.
It says that with the,
It says that in
it
the,
says that with the final one, the chairperson may direct the speaker to a different committee if the proposed subject matter falls within this reference. So the chair can still direct them as to the appropriate committee.
So can I just ask for clarification?
Instead
Can I
of,
just ask for clarification? Are you going to allow people to come to the meeting to address things that aren't on the agenda?
yes.
yes, but not,
what you're allowed to
but they're saying not the council.
That's what I think should happen.
Absolutely. We might not agree with what they're saying, but they've got every right to say
Is
it.
that actually, can we under
We
the,
didn't even know what they were presenting about. They didn't have to give us an indication or a heads up about what they want to talk about. They arrived and they spoke, and that's fine. And they had, the management was of that particular participant was by the chair. They had their 5 minutes and they'll speak on any matter that they feel comfortable.
That's what I expect.
Yep. Further down, we start dealing with vexatious.
What we need to be doing is not restricting people. We actually need to be abiding by the rules and say, if you've already spoken on the topic, you've spoken. That's it. You can't.
That's right. Yeah, I
So
agree.
we should
Yeah.
do that within the rules. We don't need to actually make it more difficult for people to speak to us. Should be making it easier.
What we can do, what I'm hearing from you is the final paragraph and the second paragraph probably could be merged together because they're saying similar things. Is that correct?
Final paragraph goes.
that's what I'm saying, but
Yes.
let's go to the thing.
You've got to get rid of the final paragraph.
Final paragraph's got to go.
And then in terms of the first paragraph, did you want
Leave
to
it as it was.
leave it as it was?
It was. What I'm hearing is that we only have the first paragraph.
I think that's what.
Can I,
First paragraph and the third,
Third line.
which the chairman may direct it.
Redirect. Yes.
be clear on, at the moment, the council has the chair of the council has the ability to send, well, it says that items have to be on the agenda for council.
No, they've taken that off.
You are taking that off.
Like, leaving it as it was.
No, I was just checking, because otherwise it still leaves council moving things out.
But somebody might come in here and present, and the chair, whether it's you or Martin, might say, actually, probably better to get a better hearing to go to this committee.
Yeah.
Because they will be able to give you more time and.
Yeah.
Look at
But, so for example, just using the same example that you'd use, so, if they came to talk about wanting uniforms and things like that, and we knew that there was the grant pool that was coming up at a certain time.
Yeah.
Then we could move them there.
Yeah.
So that way, they wouldn't be told we've already been heard, so we can, you're not allowed to re-speak to that because you'll be talking at a different committee, so.
I think it would be fair to say, possibly just picking up and clarifying something that was said a wee while ago. None of this will work unless the person who wants to come for a public forum is going to say what the public forum matter is that they want to talk about. I don't think you can interrupt them halfway and say, whoops, you're at the wrong meeting, you've got to go to somewhere.
I'm not saying I'm not halfway through, but the chair can then direct them afterwards.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying that the current arrangement is that when somebody gets in touch, normally with Amy, or comes to Amy, she finds out what the topic is that they want to speak about. And that's where, for example, you can test whether or not there are three people who all want to speak on the same topic or whatever, and you can put a stop to it before it even gets going. So I mean, my view is that in order to be very clear about that, we should actually include the fact that you will need to inform the meeting secretary, or the appropriate term, about what your topic is.
Can I just ask for some clarification again, on what you mean by stopping it prior to it coming? If there were three people and they all wanted to speak to one thing, they may all have three different messages.
Well,
So I'm a bit confused on what you meant by that.
I think it would be quite frequent to, if you had three people who wanted to talk on the identical topic and make very similar points, you would probably say, I suggest you get together and combine your discussion, because we're not going,
and wife and depending on the same topic.
so because we're not going to hear three of you.
We often have a husband and wife team.
We're talking about certain individuals here, but you've got to look at, you have to look at a wider picture and go.
Yeah. I mean, that's
a different
very, very rarely, and I just think that if, when we have three people that have put their hands up saying that they're here to talk about the rural rates, but they may actually all be coming from three different spots, and I'd hate to think that we turn around and say to them, actually, we think these other two people who may not get on because they have different views are also speaking to that. Maybe you should all get together prior. I just don't think that's right either, so.
Well,
It's not-
the alternative
Public forums work.
that you're going to interrupt one of them halfway through their discussion and say, you're repeating the earlier.
Let them speak to the
Can I just make a point, because it is individuals, people's rights to come and address council.
Democracy, right?
It is their right not to necessarily disclose what they wish to address
speak
council
about,
about. I mean,
That's right, yeah.
I've never been a problem in the past, and I don't know why it's a problem now, but I don't believe it's anybody's right to interrogate somebody about what they wish to address at the council on what matter. We probably know from the individual that's presenting what they're planning to talk about.
There is,
But the reality is, people have the right to come and address
there's
this.
no problem with Amy asking them, saying, are you presenting something? Could you give the papers so councillors can read the papers?
Well, that's their choice, that's their choice. But if they choose not to,
Yeah.
are we here to deny them that opportunity and that right?
We're not.
It's probably nice to have an indication of a topic, like you can do a bit of research yourself beforehand.
Yeah.
goes, I think it's always beneficial to kind of know, that's
Yeah,
the entire
that's nice.
presentation, but go, I'm going to talk about, you know, bicycle racks. Yeah, okay, cool. I can do
So
that.
what you're saying is that we do need to know what they're going.
No, I think it's an indicator of what they're intended to talk
But
about.
they can, that's an indication, but not, just like, it's like a heading.
It's a
You
heading.
need to know
Only the ins and outs.
the body of it.
No, okay.
Yeah,
It's no sort of surprise to ambush or whatever, but
Ambush.
no, like you see, go, okay, I know what you're going to talk about, I'm ready for it.
I think there's a couple of other things in here as well. You essentially, you've got 6 speaking slots, so you've got 30 minutes assigned to this process. So if you were in that situation where maybe you've got 7, 8 or 9 people wanting to speak and 3 were on the same topic, that might be a deciding factor as to who was on the agenda. The other one is to remember from your seats that when people come to speak to you, it's like they're coming to a hearing, they're coming to present a position to you. And it's not a debate. It's, they come and speak, you can ask for questions for clarification, but you don't engage in a debate at the table about the issue. And then
You also shouldn't be saying statements like, I agree with you, like you shouldn't.
No.
Public participation isn't for us as councillors to kind of state our position on the topic at that point in time.
Exactly.
so if we just keep those kind of things in your heads while you're thinking about this. And if Amy doesn't get an indication of the topic they want to speak on, then 15.2, if the speaker is repeating views presented by an earlier speaker at the same forum or has previously spoken on the same issue, you won't be able to look at either of those if you've got no idea what it is. So you do need to have an idea about what the person wants to talk about. And I'm not saying we would interrogate them to say, we need to know what your whole
It's a direction.
is going to be, but you need an indication so that the chair can make some informed decisions around the rules. So I think you do need to know that it's not just, I want to attend on Wednesday, please, and I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, no. But that's fine. That's fine. I mean, that's always been the case. We have these restrictions in place where these are the reasons why we can stop it. A speaker is repeating views presented by an earlier speaker at the same public forum. That covers that. So then that way when they're speaking, if we find that it's almost an identical to what someone else has said, then we can just say, do you have anything additional to bring? Because we have already heard this, and one of our, that's where our restrictions.
To be fair, the chair would do that before it even got to the agenda point. If that's the whole purpose of this, is that you have an idea about what the subject is, and the chair can then look at the rules and say yes or no, whether they're given.
And if we've only got 6 slots as well, then it's good just to kind of have so there are things in place which this states that are already there. So I don't think trying to tell people that they've stopped to be able to speak is the right way to go. But anyway, anything, so definitely change that first part.
So just for clarity on 15, we're reverting paragraph 1 to its original state, keeping the third paragraph, the person may direct the speaker. And that is something that would happen at the request for public participation. So just for clarity, if they came for a finance issue, and the mayor said, you're better talking to the Insurance Risk and Finance on that issue, that would happen before it even got to the agenda point. It wouldn't happen in the meeting.
It could happen in the meeting because
Generally, that's kind of that's what it's saying in general terms, that's what you're saying.
And it could happen in the meeting, and that way it gives them the chance to still be able to speak. I just think
Does it though? Because what we've seen is someone requests to speak at council, standing orders gives the chair the ability to direct somewhere else. But if that person doesn't want to speak at a committee, what's the ability to come back up to council? So I don't know, for argument's sake, I come along and I want to speak to something, risk and assurance based. The mayor says, well, that's risk and assurance based, you should go to this committee. And I say, well, I don't want to, I want to speak to council.
Yep.
Is my desire to speak at council, does that, you're like, okay, or am I told, no, you have to go to, what is the?
I personally haven't experienced that, but all of the things that I have personally experienced, where people are directed away from talking to the council, they've normally been very grateful because A, it has saved them time. They didn't understand that there was a better, easier way to make their point. I mean, very frequently I've had people have said, oh, I want to come along and do this. I said, look, just come and talk to Janice. It'll get sorted long before the council meeting even. Sometimes you get other people, in order for them to come here, they're going to travel half an hour. They're quite grateful to understand that actually there is a better way, a better group to talk to, etc. It's just saved them half an hour of their time. So with one exception, my experience has always been that people are grateful to find out what is the best way to get their issue dealt with, because it's not always, you know, an anxiety-free thing to turn up and talk to council. Some people are quite, you know, shaky about it. And if there's a better way, then normally, as I say, with one exception, my experience is that people are very pleased to learn about it. Councillor.
I have, you know, there was always a part that actions from public participation. So whether or not that action was, it will be coming up on the agenda on items such and such. So we will get to that, which is more often than not the case. But or in those actions, it can be this. I see this fitting really well, you know, with this committee that I sit on, and so, you know, I'd like to guide them that way. So the actions from public participation, that's where that sits. And I don't see that anymore because it says no resolutions following the public forum, no debate or discussions will be made at the meeting on issues raised, unless related to items already on the agenda. But I think that if the actions for public participation, where someone may say, so we may have a speaker and actually and it has happened before, not only can they go to the Martinborough Community Board, but they could also come to the Māori Standing Committee or, you know, to another committee to discuss. And so that's where the actions from public participation, which somehow it's kind of disappeared, and we don't really have that on our agenda items a lot of the time in the council. I think it needs to come back.
Yeah, that was a question I had because it says, you know, only items on the agenda. So if someone raises something, who then at the meeting takes on to follow up on that information that was shared? What's the next step for people that is not an agenda item? Is what
even with actions from public participation, you wouldn't find that every public participant has an action or anyone is assigned.
No,
it's not. There's not always an action that comes out.
Yeah. So there might be like if we have 6 speakers, 3 of them are ones that we can actually have something, and the other 3, does anyone, you know, is there any actions from that speaker? No. Any actions from that? No.
Amy's also pretty good though with people, you know, if somebody says, I want to speak on a topic, Amy might go, oh, actually, it's not on this council meeting, but it is coming up the next council meeting. Perhaps you delay your presentation to align. So she's very good at that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
so you know, I don't think that's too big a concern.
Circle back to my question before around if someone is, whether they come to committee or council, if they're directed somewhere else and but they're determined that they want to speak somewhere particular, is there the ability for them to make the decision about where they speak, or does that always sit?
So I think the way this is written, it would sit with the chair, but that was a discussion you would be having with the person, you know, as to why they don't feel that it's appropriate to at least raise it with our first, given that that's the specialism of that committee. Bearing in mind, you don't have the raft of committees that you used to have. When these were first adopted, you had a much bigger platform of committees than you currently do. I think we need to be a bit cautious with items coming from public participation. We've had a lot of issues where we've been tasked with things that don't fall within our current work programmes, and they've come from resolutions that as officers, my team have no control over. And we're charged with additional papers and a lot of research and things that it's not in our space at the moment. So other things are being deferred because of something that's happened in public participation. So I think if as a member around the table, you have a particular issue with something raised through public participation, you should be raising that with me. And then I can look at what my team's work plans are and whether we can bring it back as an item to a future meeting.
Mhm.
But my concern with matters arising from public participation as it currently stood, and I asked for it to come off the agenda, was that my team were being charged by this table in response to one person's view with actions. And we have a full work plan at the moment, and I need to decide if I'm going to do that thing in order to respond to your request, what am I putting down?
But by removing it, there's no discussion at all.
No,
So people are coming and.
you should be having that conversation with me as elected officials to say, when Mr Smith came and spoke about this thing, there was a real concern, what are you doing about it? And it might be, I've got a paper in the pipeline 3 meetings down the track, we're just not there yet. Or it might be a burning issue that we have to action straight away, in which case we will take it up as an action anyway. And I just think about the footpath issue in Greater,
Great up, yeah.
which we were already working to address. I have seen it on multiple occasions where, as a response to one person's view at the table, you have actioned my team with work that we haven't got the scope to do. So we just need to be cautious.
So I think that's more, let's as a governance group have a chat with regards to how that goes. But I do believe that the wording can be changed then, or something like that, on what happens with regards to but to not have any conversation happening at all when people have taken the time to come and present, and we don't have any conversation at all is. It actually, we had someone who just said, I don't know why I bothered you, none of you listened. And that's how they felt.
But surely Genesis.
I'm going to, Rob's been very patient.
Workshop, is it?
He's had his
Is it a
hand up.
workshop?
Rob's had his hand
Yeah,
up
it's just a workshop.
sometimes,
Through Mr. Chair,
very patient.
I'm happy for Storm to have his comment, then I can do it.
No, I thought, sorry, I thought Janice explained that quite well, that
Yeah.
if there is an issue and you can explain that to the person turning up, this is the process we've got to go through. And I think that explains it quite nicely, and that sets up, because you don't want to be overloading the staff with jobs that aren't essential or.
Absolutely. I understand that, but it's where it's actions from public participation would be things like they could go to this committee, or, so that's something that can be looked at, just something, so it's an acknowledgement.
I think,
There's no way to acknowledge it.
I think, provided that Amy, who, Councillor Primrose already acknowledged, does a wonderful job in setting people up to present well. I think if there's a level of, this is the process done there, and I think the things you're talking about, which are, you could go to the Martin Borough Community Board if you've got a funding idea or that sort of thing, that can be done in that 5 minutes. Like, thank you for coming.
They speak for 5 minutes.
But they are, again, the chair sets them up to say, you have 5 minutes, please leave, if you'd like the ability to have questions, please speak for less. So there is that ability to say then, thank you very much for coming. I'd recommend you take this to the Martin Borough Community Board, or please come back and see us at ARF, or please pop in a funding request. And then there is, all day long for talking to Janice about, hey, actually, I think they had a really good point in this, something needs to be done about
I
that.
completely understand where Janice is coming from with regards to that, but I'm talking more about that acknowledgement and just taking time to if someone has brought something up that hasn't been thought of before, that we can acknowledge the fact that it has been brought up, and that this will be something that will be looked into by, just that kind of acknowledgement. And if they've spoken for 5 minutes.
To be fair, it happens at the end of every public participation that I've seen. the chair has thanked them for bringing, for talking to the council and thanked them generally. And I think I have heard potentially that, maybe this is something that should be discussed at a community board. My concern is the action, it says actions from.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So change the wording, because
So to me, that means you are going to be tasking potentially something, so
No,
this action
So change it to acknowledge.
ends up with something going on the action list. With no other regard other than a presentation, and all of a sudden I've got an action on the action list that my team have to then fulfil.
So that's where.
So I think it's
Feedback.
Can we ask Rob, who now has been super patient?
I think it's important to let the conversation go to get those ideas, but I just wanted to get back to a couple of points. I guess the changes that you're proposing here does have a, operational change internally, and as a manager and with our governance team with Amy and Robin, it's really important that, this would set a bit of direction for us when people came to talk to us. I'm not saying that we're not doing that already. I'm just saying that it's just a little bit more clearer, and it would enable us to say, well, actually, that's a community grant and you should present to the Martinborough Community Board for that, and vice versa. So I think for maybe 90 to 99% of requests, we would know what they were talking about. We would know directly where they could go. I think the important thing to just reiterate what Janice said is that they're there to provide you the information to make an informed decision, and they may be a subject matter expert on a particular topic or know something in their community that they want to share with you, and putting it to the right committee or to the council group's important, just because that's the group who has been delegated with the decision to make that decision or to make a recommendation to whatever it is. So I think internally there's an aspect where we can manage that coordination and also make recommendations to the chair, and then ultimately the chair's decision based on the standing orders. The second part I wanted to mention was actually around education, and that is sort of our role is to make sure we spend the time talking to members of the public about the appropriate committees and informing them of doing that. So I think we need to take that on board as a team and just make sure that we're doing that and making that broadly known. This is the expectation of council through standing orders, that this is the process to do that. So I think there's probably those two parts. Just want to mention that operational side, but also how we engage with the public and help bring to life, I guess, your standing orders.
I'm conscious that we're starting to run close to the end of this meeting, and there is another one to follow. So I think it would be useful.
Can we hear from Colin?
Sorry?
I want to say something. Colin had it. Colin
Oh,
was
right.
waiting.
I'm aware of that. We'll come to it. So
You'll come to it.
we will. So we need to start thinking about what is the, not necessarily formal resolution, but what is the,
It's not a resolution. We're in a workshop.
we're going, yeah, but we have to think about what's next. So, and it would be helpful, I think, to Rob and to Janice if it's clear what our consensus view is for the next step. But anyway, Councillor Collins.
Yeah, I have to say personally, I'm really disappointed about any consideration about dropping actions in public participation. In all my years of experience, we haven't have given direction one way or the other to the chief executive to make these things
So you
happen.
have,
Well, I'm sorry.
through the chair, I can name several. if you want me to.
So, yeah, and well, maybe that's from other meetings but we have to be seen to be able to, when somebody takes the time to come and present to us on a matter, then we have, one of the reasons that we have actions for public participation is to give councillors the opportunity to debate what they've heard. And to have give some consideration to the presenter and seek some direction from the chief executive. That's my understanding of actions from public participation. To do nothing is a snub in the nose for those participants. It doesn't sit comfortably with me at all.
Now, would you like to invite Louise to comment?
Yeah, just wanted to say that I put in a comment, but in the chat, but I don't think anybody saw it. I 100% agree that there shouldn't be a limitation to the public forum. My suggestion in this workshop is perhaps there should be consideration to expanding that time limit for when a speaker from the public forum wishes to contribute. We have it within 24 hours. If we switched it to within 48 hours, that would give both the chair and individuals an opportunity to have a conversation with the person who's wanting to speak and just see if this is the right forum for them or they wish to speak to someone else. But I don't think there should be a limitation to who comes to speak and on what topic.
Rob, what I'm wondering is, I think there've been a couple of very clear directions from the meeting, particularly around the issue of the topics that can be raised at any of the committee or council meetings. So I think that probably makes your life a lot easier in coming back with the next draft for the first. I sense that there's still some disagreement in the room around what did we ever mean by actions required, and I can certainly confirm Janice's opinion that when you look at the actions report, there have often been dozens of items in there that came up as a result of a public forum, and when I first came to this council, some of those items were going back 3 years. So in a sense, it was if somebody had really cared about something, they wouldn't have let it linger for 3 years, surely. So these things were just on a list that was never going anywhere. So I think possibly some, well, I think Janice has given her view on what should happen with respect to future actions. And I think it's no doubt that the way the actions following public participation was traditionally interpreted had nothing to do with thanking or acknowledging the speaker, which is normally the chair's role. It all had to do with what are we going to ask the CE to do as a result of this. And I think there is potentially a better way, which is to say that if somebody has said to you, and you agree with them, this is a really important issue, that you as a council member can put that onto the agenda of a subsequent meeting and have it followed up seriously. Because one of the things that happens with the actions following that you get one councillor out of 9 who thinks this is an important issue, but because it's not debated, the other 8 don't get to say, no, I don't think so. So I think we could do that in a more efficient way, and possibly you might like to think about what suitable advice would be. And my suggestion would be at the next appropriate meeting or at a subsequent workshop, you bring us back your reflections on what's said. How does that sound?
Yeah, through the chair, I can take those comments today, update it and recirculate it around, and then definitely in terms of the actions required, I'll talk further with Janice and we can come up with some descriptions around that. Noting that you obviously, want to make the time members of the public come valuable, but also we've got to consider the resourcing required for council to deliver those actions. And then we can finalise that. I'll make sure it goes to the chairs of the community boards as well. And then we'll bring it back to, I think it's back to the strategy committee for ratification.
I just want to invite comments on Louise's thought that the deadline should be 48 hours rather than 24. My view is that that's desirable in some respects, but often people wait until they've seen what the agenda is before they decide whether they'll comment or not. And sometimes when the agenda comes out, combined with the 48-hour limit would be quite tight, I think, but I'd invite other people's views.
I would suggest it would be rare that would only if we have an item that we need to table on the day of the meeting,
right,
where there's no information on the agenda other than a topic title, that would be an issue. But I think legally we have to be out 3 days before, or our KPI is at least 3 days before. So it gives people time to at least peruse the agenda and then say, oh, But if it's not tied to the agenda and they can come and talk to you about anything, then that is kind of a moot point, really. But 48 hours would give us more time to be able to have those discussions and see where we're going with what's on the agenda, especially if we have a meeting that's chocker with public participation. So, 24 hours doesn't give us a lot of wriggle room in terms of getting hold of people, having those conversations, and then feeding back through the chair. So 48 hours, 2 days would certainly be better for operational purposes.
Just to note on Janice's point that the statutory timeframe is 2 clear working days, but we have the services, we provide a 3-day clear working.
So any concluding thoughts? Yes, thanks. Dawn.
Look, I just want to make one other comment in the document. I just question the word vexatious. It doesn't appear an appropriate word to use. We're talking to people who have already been potentially identified as repetitious or disrespectful or offensive. I think vexatious is just a word over the top. It's not appropriate.
Just having been in other committees and other organisations, vexatious has a very defined legal meaning.
Different meaning too.
Yeah, and there are people who may well be vexatious, and I think it's important to have it in there. That's not saying people who come and present regularly are vexatious, but by any stretch of imagination, that does meet a defined definition. And if you don't have it in there, then you actually limit what you can do. But there are people in our community who may well go to that. I've had it at school boards and things as well. So, there are people that go down this one. I'm not saying that we've had any in the last 5 years that I've been on council, but that doesn't mean they're not there. But it's better to have a policy that can cope with something should it come up.
If you're using a word like vexatious, which I did look up in the dictionary. What the hell? Is it appropriate if you want to keep a word like that in there, just to have a definition of it somewhere on the side or something for people? Because I personally didn't know exactly what it meant. And the definition I found was like annoying. And that's actually a really, most people are pretty annoying when they come.
I could tell you it's annoying, but it's not.
But if you're saying you want to imply the legal definition, that should actually be in there somewhere. That's what you're implying, because the Oxford Dictionary implements it first.
There's a very defined legal definition in law here in New Zealand, which the Ombudsman.
So if it's a legal term you're using, you should explain it.
Because vexation, like if you just look it up as someone
It's annoying.
to do public participation, then you're like,
You could get rid of most people.
most of the councillors are going to find this one annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the layperson's definition of vexatious,
Exactly.
nitpicking.
Yeah.
And I would be quite pleased to see it left in, but not use the word nitpicking, because that's exasperation. I think we do know what vexatious means. It's sort of arguing for the sake of the argument, not
Significantly worse than that. Significantly worse than that.
Yeah.
Definition would be good.
I agree with Angela.
Okay, right, I think that wraps us up, and I think we're now going to talk about wastewater.
Drinking water.
Drinking water.
Fresh water.
I need to read the technology.
Yeah, 5-minute break.
Yes, 5 minutes there,
So we're service.
go for it.
I tried to.
Yeah.